And shout out to everybody in the chat talking about where's the gaming. I mean, come on. Stop it. All right, Ramon, what's happening?
Hey, I was gonna call early today because I'm planning on going to watch that movie, The Room, if you've ever heard of it.
No, is that a new movie?
No, it's that movie that they say is the worst of all time, and they just made a movie about the movie.
Oh,
Like it's the
okay.
the worst made movie of all time, and it's showing in the theater. And I've actually because of all the stuff that I work on, my own content when I'm not at work. Uh, I haven't seen a movie. Well, I think I saw two movies last year, so I think I'm gonna take less of a work day tonight on all my content. But I did get a chance to see your video on the Israel deportations and on the Democratic Memo,
Yes.
and also that Ben Swan is back if you haven't seen it. So I did want to say that regarding those deportations from Israel, which are happening the same week as the Poland issue that you were talking about last time, and I
Yes.
commented on. So you can take it from me. I am Jewish. I'm a former Israeli soldier, in fact. That this cements the issue that you can't have it both ways. Okay, in the issue with Poland, you can't be for censorship when people are talking smack about you, and then against censorship when you want to talk about issues that are important for you. It's just a fact of life. And with Eritrea immigrants, Eritrea, I think a bunch of other countries, Sudan, there were a lot of people. I was reading through some blogs on some websites where a lot of these liberal people, liberal Jews especially, were saying, "Oh, this is ridiculous. We're not supposed to deport people because we used to be deported. We used to be
Uh,
uh, and everything." But they don't understand that this is the prerogative of every country in the world to decide who gets to be a citizen and who doesn't. And there's plenty. I'm not trying to minimize the issues of people from Africa, but the solution to the problems in Africa is not for everybody to leave Africa and spread their misery every place else. It's the same idea that happens in Central and South America. That Colombia, for example, has been at war for about 50 years, and they're probably going to be back at some sort of war soon, given the state of the peace treaty between the government and the rebels. So is the solution to that to have every Colombian move into Peru or Ecuador or Bolivia? That's the most ridiculous idea in the world. And these people, they have such compassion. They have there's compassion of the wise and there's the compassion of the retarded. I don't know if there's any other way to say that. If you get, I mean, if you give your lunch to somebody else every day, that just means that you're not eating lunch. And eventually you should say to them, well, maybe you should find a way to buy lunch yourself. At a certain point, this idea of compassion it just doesn't make any sense. And I think you made a great point that when the same people, they start complaining about deportations in Europe and the United States. Well, now, yeah, I think you're right that they can point to the Israelis and say, well, I mean, the Israelis have to do it. Japan doesn't let in immigrants. Um,
China, Iran, you can't just go over there and say, "Hey, just gonna park my car right here on your street." It's like, wait a minute, no. Matter of fact, if you go to Iran or China with that, you might not leave with your life. So I think the U.S. is very generous in that respect.
yeah, and I think that I don't understand why and this is what I learned from Brexit. It has nothing to do with, I started following Nigel Farage when I was still living in Israel, and I found out that you know, the government in Israel was a bunch of morons because they were letting these people in back in 2005 and 2006 when they should have been, doing some sort of assertive program to tell people, hey, you might want to stay where you are or find a third country. Unfortunately, there was a genocide in Sudan. That's not up for discussion. But Nigel Farage brought the principle of national sovereignty back to the front of the public discussion, and his Brexit, I think, was I thought in 2016 that was a more monumental event than the election in the U.S.
Mm.
But this has to be something. If people look, I'm not expecting everybody to just because of my opinions, accept me. For example, I know there's people that are always going to despise me for being Jewish or despise me for being a Cowboys fan, which is probably an equivalently hated demographic. There's always going to be people that despise you, but if everybody respects each other's space, and that's what national sovereignty is about, I think that less of this friction will occur, and we'll actually have fewer conflicts in the world. We're never going to have world peace, but we're going to have fewer conflicts. And I can see Dade is booing me in the chat. You're supposed to be a moderator, man. So anyway, the other issue you're talking about with the memo and George Bush, I do think that Trump should have probably just allowed the memo to be released, because it would have been like, well, I have nothing to hide. And that would have been my tactic. Of course, I can't read his mind, but I have to just like I disagree with him about having a parade, I think he should have released the Democratic memo. And I'm actually hoping it gets released because I'm just curious to see what's in it. But with George Bush, people are now holding him up as like this paragon of the decent Republican. This was the guy who helped create this whole system of surveillance state.
Yes.
And the Democrats, I thought that the Democrats thought that was the worst thing ever, and that he was a criminal, and Incubus was making all those songs where they called him a megalomaniac and Hitler. So did he like convert to like non-Hitler? Did he get like some sort of like new skin or something, or did he switch players in Tekken or something?
All he did was he just kind of rebranded himself as a liberal, kind of like the way John McCain is doing, and all sins of the past are forgiven. He started, painting the little doggies and stuff, so he looks like a softer image, and then he comes out and rails against Trump, so now he's all good.
Yeah, I think that we've had demonstrations this whole week of how we really don't have a party that's responsive to what the people who elected Donald Trump want. The Republican Party is still a joke. The budget that they passed is still a joke. Rand Paul was absolutely on point, saying that we don't have a conservative party when the Republicans are in power, because we just give them whatever they want in the budget. We give. I mean, I'm saying we as the people, we give them the discretion to do that, and then they just take it and run with it. The lobbyists are never going to. They're never going to run out of doors to open, thanks to these whores like what's her name, Susan Collins, and bitch McConnell, and before I get more heated, I think I'm gonna cut this call short. And you're, as usual, great show and great guests. And oh, by the way, the Secret Service officer that I interviewed, he's getting current calls to shut up, because they're a lot of his critics say the Secret Service, when you leave the Secret Service, you aren't supposed to talk about the Secret Service. But he just made a video with just how you see all those books behind me, so there was an even larger pile of books by Secret Service officers in front of him. So it just doesn't make any sense.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's secret until you can make money off of it.
That's right.
All right, well, have a good night, and everybody have fun. I'll be in the chat for a couple minutes, but then I'm going to go.
All right, thank you for the call, man. Definitely appreciate you.
Good night.